What's up, everybody? Welcome to My Fantasy Podcast. And look who's back from Florida. Well, how was the vacation, Dan?
It was great. It was great. Good 9-10 days to just relax in the sun and not have to work. And that's the tough part is, those first few days coming back, you feel like you're kind of in a rut. So I'm glad to be on the podcast this week because listening to last week's podcast kind of put me in a rut too with all of our smack talkers out there that we had joining up.
And Dan, it was so bad for you. It was really so bad for you because you had Dylan Davis Torado on the podcast calling you out and calling shot by shot of the Yankees Astros game, which they won, by the way. Not only that, coming off of beating you in fantasy football for the first only loss of your season that week. And you weren't here to defend yourself, but it could have been bad for you. It could have been real bad for you.
Well, it was worse that I wasn't there to defend myself. And, how are those Yankees doing now is all I would have to say to that. You can give me commentary on one game, but let's talk about the whole series. So that's what we'll be doing tonight is watching some Astros. We sure won't be watching any Yankees. That's all I have to say about that.
And you did still kind of get lucky, though. I mean, it was a 7-game series, came down to the end. So, but yeah, you got called out several different ways. I'm sorry, I just kind of lost control there for a little bit last week because, I mean, it's hard to control all those guys. So much conversation, man. So much conversation going on.
Yeah, I thought you were just going to take a nap right behind you and let the other two just go to work. And I think Orlando was already sleeping halfway through it, so.
He was, and I apologize to Orlando, who will be joining us here in a second, that I kind of forgot about him because of the shock factor of the two outsiders on the podcast. And sometimes I did just let him go. And I think Ryan even cut a UFC promo, which was nowhere in the rundown at all, somewhere in the middle of that. And I think DDT got to talking about LeVar Ball. You missed that. It was a good podcast, though. Sorry that you missed the 30th episode. You were in Florida for the 30th episode, kicking it in Del Boca Vista, Phase 2, just chilling with a Heineken.
Multiple Heinekens, and it was a good vacation. Props to if anybody who checked out the site while I was gone, myfantasysportstalk.com. Our own Brandon Reed was a publisher, editor extraordinaire over those 9 to 10 days. So he busted out a lot of those pieces. So thanks to you, Brandon, and Colby Gatz, who was another one of our editors that did some work, and Kira McCall on the entertainment side. I mean, you can just give her an MVP award for that entire entertainment section because it's her little baby, and she does great work for us.
Yeah, definitely. I did my part. We kept it afloat, but I could not have done the entertainment side as well. So big shout out to Karen McCall for keeping that whole thing going too. And I was monitoring, but I don't think I could have handled all their stuff. A lot of times they pump out more sports articles than we do in a day, depending on what's going on with movie premieres, and hot box office times and music releases and such as that. So. But they do a great job. I am Brandon Reed. That is Dan Shaw. This is My Fantasy Podcast from myfantasysportstalk.com. Thanks for joining us once again, episode 31 of 2017. Here's what we're going to do today. I just wanted to give Dan a real quick chance to say anything out to DDT Torado, who is not going to be on the podcast today. So it's Dan's show this week. Right back at you, champ. We'll talk to Dan about that for a second, how it was feeling sitting in Florida, watching the Yankees lose or win, and watching the 30th episode of the podcast with all the smack talk going on. We'll cover NBA, we'll cover NFL, and of course get to your mailbag questions, of which we got all sorts this week, Dan. It's NBA, it's NFL, it's fantasy, it's college, it's everything.
And a nice cornucopia of sports questions that we got. And I think this week, our listeners were obviously missing me last week. So we got some hate to to our guest, Thomas Take from last week, and just some love, some returning questioners. that I always like to. So, if you build a rapport with us, continue to submit questions, because we'll bring you on not just once, not just twice, but as the Purtons know, every single week that they ask a question. They're my fantasy podcast royalty, is I would like to say. So they get an automatic selection every week, and we got your long-lost cousin, another Memphis Tigers fan, who submitted a question this week. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't have to reply too much to DDT from last week. My Astros did the talking for me, and I think I'm just going to do the talking in the Fantasy Football League by continuing to win.
Which you did bounce back with a win. And I believe he took an L, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember. But
No, I think he won too, sadly.
Okay. So it's still a game behind you?
Yep.
Okay. Well, he's doing good. He's doing good. A lot better than me. But we'll bring Orlando and Ryan in here in just a second. So you do got to deal with Ryan today on the podcast. Sorry, Dan.
I'll apologize to our listeners too, because as some of them will find out, Ryan's voice, according to one of our listeners, is annoying as hell. So we're gonna get that involved, and so not only don't apologize just to me, but to our listeners out there as well.
Well, also going back to Nick and Judy, it's not only just that we usually read their questions on air and address their questions on the podcast, is that they submit debate topic, right? I mean, it's always pertinent, and it's always not just a dry question, yes or no. It's usually something that it's going to cause a little bit of a debate between everybody.
Oh yeah, the Purtons are great. They know how to push our buttons and give us love at the same time. So every week when I get those messages from them, I know it's going to be gold, and it is gold every single week.
Well, it's got to be fun for them too, now that you mention it and put it like that, because they're almost like script writers. They just hand us a script. Here, guys, do this and go for this, and that's what we do. So we'll do it today. Orlando has joined us. What up, dude?
How's it going, fellas?
Man, we're going to talk about your Spurs and my Grizzlies pretty soon. So I can't wait for that.
Sounds awesome.
What kind of shirt you got on today?
Oh, it's a superhero shirt today. I got my little cape going on.
Oh my God!
Wow.
We got to deal with that today.
Getting ready.
I quit.
Getting ready for Halloween.
What is going on?
In the superhero skirt. Yeah.
That should be your everyday costume every time you come on the podcast.
It actually is. Well, so I'll go ahead. It's my introduction to the podcast today, so get used to it, folks.
All right. So the question is, who is Batman? Who is Batman? Who is your Batman, man?
See, Batman is currently not here, so that'll be introduced later on. It's a secret remain.
That's awesome, man. I wore my Grizzlies shirt just for you today. Dan, who you repping over there? You got Astro shirt on, or you got?
Oh, I actually got the Hornets. I'm going
what?
NBA as well. A little NBA Charlotte Hornet action. Yeah.
Did you pick that up on your way back from Florida?
It was a birthday present, birthday gift.
Good.
From the future mother-in-law. There we go.
Oh.
Give some props out to that. Huh?
Hey, the Hornets
surprised you're not wearing surprised it's not a Nuggets.
Yeah, well, George, I actually read George Karl's book while I was on vacation, so I'm done with the Nuggets. Great book if anybody wants to do some nice sports reading, that's the only reading I usually do. Furious George by George Karl, fantastic book. But yeah, I'm no longer a Nuggets fan, and not a Sonics fan either.
Not a Sonics fan?
Well, yeah, just the George Karl reference there.
Yeah.
And there's no team. That was another thing. In case you didn't know.
Let's start there. Although they're probably first in line to get an expansion team or a relocation bid, I would have to say.
I would hope so. That city, I mean, they love their basketball, so they definitely deserve it back.
Yeah. So what I was saying is the Hornets colors are very fashionable. I really like them.
Yep. Yeah, they look pretty.
Yep. Okay. Where's Ryan? Is he going to join? Is he going to happen today?
He got called out from a listener, and now he's just on a hiatus. The invitation has been sent, and we're just waiting. Thomas taking his usual tardiness, I guess, or maybe he's having technical difficulties again. Those phones, they got some issues.
It happens. It happens more frequently to some than others. But so first thing I was going to do is take a quick, and this is perfect time since Ryan's not even here, is take a quick trip through the MFST Fantasy Basketball League. 1 week down. What you guys think? Orlando, you seen this team that's calling himself last year's champ?
Yeah, I saw the score.
Yeah, not off to a good start, is he?
What?
Dan's reaction's hilarious. Yeah. All right. Did you win your first week, Dan? I'm opening up my scores right now.
I did lose. I brought up with an L, but I scored a respectable point margin, which I was happy with. It was in the higher half, the upper half. So you have one bad matchup the first week. I'm not gonna listen. My ring shows it off. So all I gotta say.
Okay, that's your voodoo point right there, because that's exactly what I was talking about when the NFL season first started. It hadn't gone so good. So I don't know.
Not too worried about it.
Orlando got to win. Didn't you? Out of your team.
Yes, sir. I got to win. And it felt pretty good being Kobe Getz. Mr. Boston native himself.
Yeah, you got to feel for Kobe though, after the injury to Gordon Hayward. Probably some of the steam was taken out of his sails. But there's our man, Ryan Thomas. It's on now. We'll get to the questions later. You did actually get a sneak peek of this question, so you kind of know what's coming at you. But we'll get to that a little bit later in the mailbag segment. But how you been in the last 6 days, bro?
I've been really good. How about you guys? How's things going?
Man, great. Outside of fantasy football. I'll probably propose a trade to you next. I'll propose a trade to a lot of folks.
The door is always open.
How you feel about Matt Ryan?
Matt Ryan, definitely underachieving thus far in comparison to where he was drafted. I actually didn't get Matt Ryan in any of my leagues this year, so I am kind of feeling pretty lucky in that regard.
All right, do me a favor. Turn your phone around or I'm going to hurt you.
Oh, there we go. I just popped on. Cut me some slack.
Size it up and you'll be good. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. So just, I don't know, around the NBA, we're about to get to a fantasy or just a mailbag question regarding the NBA. So basically a week done. Some teams played 3, some teams played 4. Just around the league, any surprises? Dan, Philadelphia 76ers, Minnesota Twins did pick up a big win over Oklahoma City. Any of the teams that you thought were going to be good or not, or teams that you were not thought were going to be good are good?
Yeah, I mean, just you mentioned the 76ers. I've watched a couple of their games. Ben Simmons looks like the real deal, obvious rookie of the year to me, triple-double in it almost every single game that he's played so far. So I'm happy to have him on my fantasy team. The one thing that's kind of a head-scratcher, and now he's hurt, is Markelle Fultz with the 76ers. That was a terrible first week. Now he's going to be out for 3 games with a shoulder injury. So I don't know what Brett Brown is doing there with that team. Ben Simmons has been running the point more than Fultz has, so it's interesting to see how that'll do. But the team looks pretty good. They're still young, but Embiid is playing well. And a guy that I'm going to answer the fantasy basketball question with is actually not Des the Kitty, but is actually a guy on the 76ers that's going to take over for Fultz in the starting lineup. So we'll get to that in a bit. But the 76ers has been good. And the Thunder, they did lose that heartbreaker to the Timberwolves, which if you look at what the league said, it really shouldn't have happened. But I like that the Thunder have lost. I think they've lost 2 games already now. So where's DDT when you need him for that NBA Finals pick? That's all I got to say.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Ryan, you been watching any basketball?
I have, actually. I watched a little bit of, I believe it was Golden State. I can't even remember who they were playing, but
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who they were playing.
It really doesn't matter, but I don't understand how people could think that OKC could make the finals. I'm not a believer. I think me and Dan are on the same page on that. Melo's old. I am a big Paul George fan, so I did like the fact that they got Paul George, but I just don't think it's enough to combat Golden State or Houston for that matter.
Yeah, Houston got dealt a blow when CP3 is missing some time now, two weeks to a month or so. So we'll see what happens. So what about out west, guys? I mean, east, guys. What does it look like? Cleveland? Let me ask Orlando. What is the power structure now in the East?
Well, I think the Cavs are still on top. I know they lost Derrick Rose recently. There's rumors that they might pick up Eric Bledsoe from Phoenix. I'm not sure the possibility on that. The Wizards look pretty good, and you could tell that the Celtics without Hayward are struggling, losing those 2 opening nights. I know they're still struggling to find their balance, but I think Kyrie's gonna have to do a lot more than what they expected. I think in the East. So right now it still seems like a bit of a mess, but I will still put the Cavs on top right now. When I guess the Wizards number 2 coming up, depending on how fast the Celtics could balance.
Yeah, the Wizards are actually on top right now, undefeated, 3-0. Clippers, my Memphis Grizzlies, and San Antonio Spurs are all 3-0 as well. So, Dan, while you're on vacation, no one wants to talk to me about the Grizzlies. I told y'all not to sleep on them. They're a better team than last year, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest, I caught a little bit of that Golden State game, but I've been checking the box score. Marc Gasol has been tearing it up, a lot better than what I thought he would. You know, obviously he's had a perennial all-star every year, but when you took him, I thought you took him early in our fantasy league. I think you took him in the 3rd round, and I thought that was a little soon. And a guy that I played,
I think I took Conley second.
You did, and that's who I was going to touch on next is Conley. He's actually kind of disappointed this year. His offensive numbers, at least, haven't been good. When I'm playing him in daily fantasy, and he's putting up some duds and actually costing me some rounds. But honestly, it doesn't matter because of how deep that team is and how they just play team basketball. You know, you look at the additions of Tyreek Evans, Chandler Parsons coming off the bench. They have, you know, when they go to that bench, they have basically starting type players. So they don't miss a beat. So, you know, props to your Grizzlies, whether or not they can maintain it. I think health is going to have to be a huge factor there. If they can stay healthy, I mean, looks like our questioner, Nick Pertins, thinks they could be a top 4 team in the West. I'm not too sure about that, but they're definitely a playoff team.
All right, we'll get to that in just a second. Answer the mailbag question. Let me get your take on Lonzo Ball real quick, Dan. What you think? Bad
Stud.
First game, and then he's bounced back.
Yeah. I mean, LeVar Ball said it best when he said he actually called out the Wizards and John Wall. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
he ain't John Wall.
He said that Lonzo's not going to lose twice in 1 week, and you know, John Wall fired back a little bit on Twitter yesterday, so it should be a little interesting game tonight with the Wizards heading to Staples Center to take on the Lakers. So I think he's looked solid. He had a rough first night, you know, but Patrick Beverley does that to a lot of players, especially rookies. So I like what I see. I don't think he's going to be as good as you think he might be in fantasy. I see some of his numbers taking a little bit of a backseat to some other rookies that were drafted after him, both on my team, Ben Simmons and Dennis Smith Jr. So, but you're not going wrong with Lonzo Ball.
No, certainly not. But back to LeVar's point about him not losing 2 games in 1 week, Lonzo's going to lose 2 games in 1 week multiple times this very season. So let's just chill. But yes, looks very good. Brandon Ingram is really the stud on that team. I don't know. He just needs to. I mean, he's doing okay. He just really needs to take over that team. In my honest opinion, he needs to be the one. Lonzo needs to be the 2. So, I mean, not as far as position. I just mean as far as pecking order goes. But, all right, that's the NBA. Golden State keeps rolling. Memphis keeps rolling. Did y'all see Steph Curry was ejected for the first time in his career in Memphis? That's what I'm talking about. Just domination, complete domination.
Yeah, no suspension, just a fine for throwing his mouthpiece at the ref.
That was iffy. Yeah, I think I would have for sure. You can't do that, and I think that's not the first time he's done that either. He's thrown it into the crowd. He's done that several times it seems. But anyway, Ryan, you gonna cut a UFC promo this week?
Well, I have kind of ran out of material for the UFC, or just as I thought I would run out of material for the UFC. A story from TMZ broke today that Michael Bisping is being sued by I don't know if he's a gym employee or a gym owner, gym in Anaheim, California. Bisping punched a worker or whoever, one of the customers of the gym for stealing his weights or using his weights on the weight machine without asking him. The man is suing, and he's going to be in a legal battle post his GSP fight. So hopefully he doesn't lose his belt. Hopefully for him, he doesn't lose his belt or the court case.
I did see something about that.
Yeah, that's not good. Not good at all.
And there's your UFC update this week, brought to you by Ryan Thomas of Thomas Take. Thanks a lot. It's going to become a new segment. Appreciate it. All right. Let's get into the mailbag questions. We're going to start with Nick and Judy Pertins and keep that NBA theme rolling along with some Grizzlies talk coming up next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Brandon Reed, Dan Schalk is back, episode 31. He's here in the flesh, back from Florida, from Del Boca Vista, Phase 2. Orlando Torres is here, and Ryan Thomas is back on the podcast. So we promise you Spurs talk. We promise you Grizzlies talk. We promise you that we'd get to Nick and Judy Pertins. Appreciate the question again. Hey, all we had to say is Grizz and Spurs can both be top 4 in the West. Grizz are deep as hell, and the Spurs are like the damn Patriots, always there. Nick and Judy. Dan, you fielded the question first. What was your initial reaction when you saw it?
I don't think the Grizzlies are a top. I think we're at 4 or 5. I'm not sold, but they're looking good to start the season. But I'm sold longer, and both teams deal with injuries an awful lot, especially the Grizzlies. Until they can show me that they're going to stay healthy, I think they're both playoff teams and might be able to even advance. But I don't think they're both going in the West.
All right. Now, on my end, you were breaking up during a lot of that, and that serves you right, because I didn't like what you were saying. And no, I didn't post-edit that either. You really were breaking up, and those words were lost.
You're glad that they were then.
Yeah, I kind of pieced it together, and I didn't like where you were going. So never mind all that. Yes, we kind of got what you were saying there. So Orlando, what do you think as far as could either team be top 4 in the West? When Kawhi gets back, do you think they're a top 4 team?
Well, previously I had them, I think, at 3rd, right behind Houston. Of course, the Golden State being 2nd. So I think they could finish top 4. Grizzlies, again, I said I wouldn't be surprised with their playoff team. I don't know if they finish it in the top 4. I didn't mention earlier when you were asking about the NBA, but I really do like what Dylan Brooks is doing as a reserve. He's helping me stay quiet about the Grizzlies. But again, it's still early. So to say the Grizzlies are top 4 is a little too early for me to go that far.
When does Kawhi come back?
Well, I think with the way the team is playing 3-0, LaMarcus has been stepping up, not showing. Yeah, not kind of being the same guy that he was last year, who was just kind of being lousy, wanting out of there. Just a different, emotion expressions, and I think they could take their time with Kawhi now rather than trying to rush him back.
Yeah, LaMarcus had stepped it up. I don't know. I think the Spurs, if Kawhi comes back relatively soon and they do keep playing at a high level with LaMarcus Aldridge as well. And let me mention another guy, dude. Dejounte Murray. Dude had 15 rebounds the last game. What? You know why? And you know why? Well, I mean, he is 6'5", but because he went after, he plays aggressively. He's all over the floor. That's why he was good in the playoffs last year. That's what he does, and that's why I was telling y'all last year about. Do y'all think the Spurs now are letting him get rebounds? No, they weren't doing that with Russell Westbrook either, regardless of what they said. Not through 82 games. It's because the dude's all over the place and plays like a ball of energy. So I like Dejounte Murray, but 15 rebounds as a point guard? Jeez, when's the last time that's happened?
Those are Lonzo Ball type numbers.
Not rebounds. Assist I'll give you, but rebounds? It's not even LeBron numbers.
Yeah, no, Parker's replacement is doing pretty good, stepping up in that role, and it makes me feel better about them not taking Chris Paul, which I mean, they wouldn't have taken him anyways. It was fine, but he's already hurt with Houston, so again, him getting that experience last year in the playoffs against Golden State has really helped them. You can see it going into the season.
Yep. As far as the Grizzlies go, Dan mentioned that Marc Gasol is doing everything right now. So right now averaging 24, 10, and 2.3 blocks. Mike Conley, 4.7 assists. He's doing okay. And Dylan Brooks, man, a huge first game. And then just kind of, come back down to earth. But I love what he can bring. And I didn't really see that from the get-go. But I saw it pretty quick starting in preseason. I saw it pretty quick. So many Grizzlies are averaging double-digit points per game and playing over 20 minutes per game. Jarrell Martin, Mario Chalmers, Tyreek Evans, Dylan Brooks, James Ennis, Mike Conley, Marc Gasol, they're all playing over 20 minutes a game, over 22 minutes per game, actually. So, like Dan said, deep. I don't know about top 4 guys yet, but I keep telling these guys on the message board, y'all just keep sleeping. This team is better. The Grizzlies, that is, Nick, better than last year. Better at every position, I think, except power forward. And so, I don't know about top 4, though. Going to be interesting. Going to be an interesting season. Good luck to Judy and good luck to Orlando and your Spurs. We'll see you down the road, and may the best man win. All right. So let's bounce back up to the top of the list, guys. This one, I guess, is just kind of for me. Maybe Dan can speak on this a little bit. But as he mentioned previously, from my long-lost cousin, this is from Christopher Allen Reed, who's chimed in on the podcast before. Hey, Brandon, great insight earlier in the season about our Tigers. The UFC loss was a crushing one, but I still love our team. Where do you see us ranked at the end of the season? Any bowl game prediction and outlook for our basketball team this year? Is Tubby the man? Yes or no? As far as the football team, yes, the UCF loss was a big one. And I knew we were going to have 1 or 2 of those losses. We've only had one of them so far, but we don't have to play South Florida. So I think we should win out. The next game that really scares me is SMU because they put up more points than anybody else in the American Athletic Conference. So but the good thing is we played 3 of our last 4 games at home and probably should win all those games and probably going to meet the winner between UCF is undefeated and South Florida is undefeated. They're ranked 17 and 18, I think, in the country. They play the last week of the season. So the winner of that stays undefeated, and we probably play them in the AAC conference championship. And then if we win that, who knows? I don't know, but I'm just thinking, modestly, say we lose that, we're probably looking at Birmingham Bowl or St. Petersburg Bowl, one of those 2 bowl games probably. So I don't know. Dan, have you been keeping up with Memphis football much this year, making some noise?
Yeah, I mean, not too much that a Memphis Tigers fan would know. Obviously, I watched that UCLA game earlier in the season when is it Riley Ferguson, the quarterback?
Oh, yeah.
He was going toe-to-toe with Rosen, and honestly, he looked better than him coming off the week previous, which I think was their first game where he had like a 30% completion percentage, but that was weather affected. I mean, I think offensively, they're one of the best in the country, one of the best in their conference, but I think it's going to be the defense that ultimately will be the deciding factor whether they can win the championship and play a decent sized bowl bid and a bowl team, because they let in points as much as they can score them. So that's the one thing they basically have to outscore every team. Is their defense going to be enough to put some stops on the board? but for their offense to win. So that's ultimately what it seems like, from an outside perspective looking at the Tigers program. But they've definitely shocked me with some of their performances earlier in the year and just continuing to win. And Ferguson keeps getting better from that week 1 dud that he put up to now.
The comeback last week at Houston, down 17-0 at the halftime. Came back and win that. The first time in 60 years they've overcome a 17-point deficit to win a game. So, things looking good there. Chris, I just think that it is going to be what it is going to be. I think we'll finish 10-2 after the conference championship game because we missed the one game. So I think 10-2, and we're looking at St. Petersburg or Birmingham Bowl, somewhere in there. I'd look in that range. As far as the basketball team, hey, I like it. Tubby is a coach and a teacher. I trust him. I don't care if he's not the greatest or hardest working recruiter. You let Tubby Smith get 4 or 5 JUCO players who already have that experience and has the size and just the mentality to play at a higher level basketball and mix in with a few talented freshmen and let Tubby coach those guys, then I'm all for it. Just let it happen. I'm so much in a better place with this program right now, despite not winning at a high level than where it was 3 years ago. So, but 6 juniors, 4 seniors, 5 freshmen. That's what the team makeup right now. So I say let Tubby go after it, coach those guys up, and that's I have all faith. I have all faith in Tubby. David Nickelberry, Kareem Bruton, Mike Parks, those are some of the guys. So watch what happens. Let a Hall of Fame coach those guys up, and I guarantee we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right in a tough conference, which added Wichita State, Dan. Did you know Wichita State is now in the American Athletic Conference?
I did. I love me some college basketball. I'm looking forward to the season. Memphis, I think you're more optimistic with your outlook with the Tigers. Anytime you see, 2 Lawson brothers leave the program, I think some more pessimistic Tigers fans probably look at Tubby in a different light than what you are. I think he's going to have to coach to build up that type of fan base again for himself at least. That's just, again, me looking out and being on some message boards with the Tigers, all the way up here in New York. But
I think I was banned from both of them. Thank you for relaying messages.
Yeah, there are some Tigers faithful that do not like Tubby Smith and what he's done with the program since he's taken over. So, putting some wins together, I agree with you. He is the type of coach that will coach up his players. And ultimately, in college basketball, if you play as an actual team, which I think Tubby Smith is capable of getting his team to do, his players to do, then you can win some games. So it's definitely going to be a tough conference. But do you think they're a tournament team, or are they going to be in the land?
No, not this year. No.
19 maybe?
I'm thinking they'll hover around 16 to 18 wins, probably over 500. I would hope, just because they're going to be better than advertised and what people thought. In a tough conference now, it's going to be tough. I think Cincinnati is number 1, I believe, with Wichita State number 2. That's deep. UConn there always deadly. So it's going to be tough, definitely. But as far as those Lawson's brothers you mentioned, been nothing but off the court drama with them since they've gone, with both the brothers. So I don't care, man. I don't care. If it's going to be a headache, I would rather not deal with it. That's just the way I feel. Start over, start fresh, do what you got to do. And Tubby still recruits Georgia heavily, obviously, too. I just realized today that we got 4 players from the state of Georgia on the team this year. So, but appreciate the question, Christopher Allen Reed. Tigers going to be all right. Watch out. Who would have ever thought it was the football team dominating and the basketball team is way off? And that time is now. So appreciate the question. Why don't we get into another one? Let's move on. And it's about time. I'm glad that Ryan is here now. We'll talk a little baseball. And this one's for Dan. It's from my old friend. We've been kicking it since May. Jackson Borland. Dan missed the show last week because the Yanks almost got his Astros. Any apologies for me, Dan?
No apologies for you, Jackson Borland, because ultimately my team is in the World Series while yours is sitting at home enjoying the off season. So I'm going to watch tonight because they're.
Do you remember what you said about the Yankees though, back in May?
Basically, after this show, I'm going to be watching the Astros in the World Series. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Verlander's on the mound. Verlander owned the Yankees in the ALCS. Now, I will say, I will give the Yanks credit, not any to Jackson Borland. But the Yankees, yeah, they did surprise me. They did make the playoffs. I didn't even think they were going to do that. Aaron Judge, despite having the most strikeouts in postseason history ever.
Most walks, too, as a rookie, ever.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the postseason and how many strikeouts he had, more than any other player that's ever played in the postseason.
26.
No, it actually struck out once more than that. He got to 27 and holds the record.
27? Oh, I must have missed it.
Yeah, so he tied it with 26 and broke it with 27. So the Yankees, I'll be honest, when the Astros were down 3-2, I was nervous. I was a little worried that they might not advance, but the Yankees were the second worst team on the road this season. They can't win on the road. They can win great at home, and that's going to be my Astros problem in the World Series. The Astros aren't going to win because they can't win on the road. Their offense becomes a dud just like the Yankees did, but at least they made it to the World Series and were able to get over that hump. The Yankees will be there, but I think they're going to run into some issues with Joe Girardi possibly leaving, whether it be influenced by the Yankees or a decision himself. But they'll need a solid manager because Girardi's one of the best, and if you just let him walk, I think that'll be a mistake. So we'll see in the next coming weeks what exactly happens there. But the Yankees have a bright future. I didn't think it was going to be this successful this early, but ultimately the Astros are in the World Series.
And there you go. You did answer the question, though. Orlando, don't you remember what Dan said about the Yankees back in May, 1 month into season when they were killing? They're like, they ain't going to make the playoffs. Ryan said it, too, on Facebook, just not on the podcast. But they were like, Yankees ain't making the playoffs.
They shouldn't have made the playoffs. If there wasn't a one-game playoff, they wouldn't have made the playoffs.
Oh, please. That's the dumbest thing ever. That should be at least a 3-game series.
I love it. I love it as a baseball fan.
I mean, if you're going to go through the trouble to do that, you play 162 games, and you're telling me these two teams got to play one? That's not how baseball's done.
I love it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but
I'm not saying the expansion's not a bad thing. I'm saying you need to expand the one-game series. One game is not a series.
I love baseball anytime you could add more to the season. I don't want less games. I want as much as possible. That's just me being a big baseball fan and a baseball purist. But go to Orlando. I don't want to steal the question.
Yeah, no, I currently remember that was one of the most entertaining things I remember. That whole dispute between Borland and Dan. So at the end, regardless of the Yankees got into the postseason, Dan got the last laugh because his Astros knocked off the Yankees.
Well, that's it, Jackson. You're not going to get your apology. I thought you were, man. You should have. All apologies. Yeah, because I remember what he said. He didn't give him a chance, and they made it a long way. One home game away. And it would have been a bad night for Dan. But no. That's it. So, okay, Dan. World Series predictions now. Let's get it all on the line. We're just moments away from Game 2. Astros down one game to none.
Yeah. I mean, by the time this podcast is aired, like on the on WBLZ Sports on their wavelengths, airwaves. That's what I'm going for. This prediction will kind of be moot because if the Astros do not win tonight with Verlander on the mound, they're done. It could be a 4-game series. It might go to 5, maybe 6. But there is zero chance of the Astros winning the series if they don't win tonight with their ace Verlander on the mound. And it's tough because, as I alluded to when talking to that guy named Borland, the Astros aren't a good road team, and they're playing in L.A. Obviously, the Dodgers have home field advantage. So the Astros might be able to steal 2 out of 3 in Houston if they can get there, and maybe they can even win all 3, but it's still going to be the same problem that the Yankees had against the Astros in the ALCS. They just can't win on the road. So this game 2 tonight is crucial. This is a must-win game for the Astros with their ace on the mound. Their offense needs to show up on the road. They're averaging less than 2 runs on the road this postseason. Unless they play the Red Sox, then they can just jump on them for 10+. So, yeah, Ryan knows what I'm talking about there. And so, I mean, it's all about game 2, and we'll find out, in 4 or 5 hours whether or not this is going to be a series. Because if it goes tied up into Houston, I can see the Astros maybe taking it all in Houston, but it's doubtful. I said today I have the Dodgers in 6 games, and I think ultimately that's what it'll be.
Before I go to Ryan, what the hell is up with the heat? I mean, it was 98 at first pitch time. I mean, it's never in the 90s in LA. That's not even what they're known for in July, much less almost November.
Yeah, and that actually cost Keuchel the game last night because he made 2 mistake pitches taken out for home runs. The Chris Taylor home run would have been a home run no matter the temperature, but that Justin Turner one, that's because of that heat. The ball carries in the heat, and it left that short left field in Dodger Stadium just barely. But if it was a 60-degree day in Boston, that would not have been a home run. So it's tough that you got to deal with the different weather circumstances. Obviously, the Astros playing a dome, so they don't deal with that too much. But it was a hot one, and it definitely affected the balls being put in the air.
All right, Ryan, prediction?
I got the Dodgers in 6, as well as Dan. I was rooting for the Astros, Dan. I like the Astros. Even though they beat my Boston Red Sox, I like the story. They built their team the way that, a team is supposed to be built. Or a team that you want to see a team get built through the draft. They drafted all their talent. They brought up their talent through their system. I wanted to see the Astros with the 18th lowest payroll, I believe, beat the highest payroll in the World Series. That would have been fun. But as Dan said, if they lose tonight, if Verlander gets touched up, which he could, I think that this series is done. But I do think the Astros will put a little bit of a fight together and put it to the Astros will put it probably to 6 games. 6 games max. I'm going to stick with the prediction that I think this series will go at least 6 games. I'm hopeful that the Astros somewhat put up a bit of a fight. Realistically, though, I thought that this series would be much better in terms of game 1. I thought Keuchel would put up a little bit of a better performance than what he did. But the Dodgers, I think it's just the Dodgers' time right now. They knocked on the door for so many years, and Clayton Kershaw got the monkey off his back of the postseason. So, even though he allowed that home run last night to, I believe it was Bregman, that kind of, got the juices flowing that, hey, I can't let this happen again. He bared down, and he kind of mowed through the Astros from that point on, finishing the game with 11 strikeouts. So I'm excited for tonight. I hope the Astros put up a fight, but I think the Dodgers will win it in 6.
We got to get out of here. We got to get to it. A big World Series game. Orlando, are you an Astros fan? You rooting for the Astros in this one?
I have a lot of friends who's rooting for the Astros, but I'm going to say the Dodgers 6. So I've been watching some of the games too. I caught the Yankee series with the Astros. Pretty good series, but just like Dan said and what Ryan mentioned, I think the Astros have to win one on the road. And speaking of 98 degrees, if anything that should have helped out the Astros, I know they're playing a dome, but it is so damn hot in Texas. That's nothing. That's nothing for those guys. But
that's what I was going to ask you. What is your temperature now, Orlando?
Well, see, it barely hit 60 degrees. It's going to be like in the 50s, 60 degrees, all weather, and people already putting on gloves, scarves. That's how Texas gets. Just a little bit of cold, and, we overreact over here because we're so used to the heat. So it's nothing bad. Nothing to what Dan gets in Buffalo and the heat. The heat, 90 degrees, is pretty much normal for us starting like in March or February.
Yep, the cold wave has hit the south where I'm at, where I think it's fairly chilly. It was supposed to be in the 40s last night. So, Dan, Orlando, I turned on my heat for the first time.
My heat is on as well. Join the club.
Mine has been on for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Kind of came out of nowhere. I guess I kind of got
Perks
the
of
weather
Buffalo.
Orlando has. It's not real chilly, but at nighttime it is. It's in the 40s. So, but I don't know. I mean, what's going on in LA where it's got to be almost 100 degrees well, it was just 5 o'clock, I guess, there at first pitch time, a little after 5. So a little bit different there. But damn, they're not even known for heat like that. That's crazy. So there's all your baseball talk, World Series talk wrapped up. And we'll see what happens tonight, Game 2 of the World Series. So we'll see what kind of mood Dan is in on the podcast next week after a few games are going down, or maybe it's over. I don't know what the schedule looks like, but we'll see what happens. So coming up next, we're going to take a look at our waiver wire in the MyFantasySportsTalk.com Fantasy League. It is a 14-team league. So that'll give you a good idea of what may be left in your waiver wire and give you some tips and hints and see what's going on there. And we've also got some hate for Ryan coming up. I told him last week, if you're going to be a regular on this show, then you're going to get your hate mail. So careful what you say. Don't stir up too much. He didn't listen, so it's going to happen coming up next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Thanks for joining us. This is Brandon Reed. Dan Shaw is back from vacation. Orlando Torres is there, and Ryan Thomas is here. So I told you I wanted to kind of look at our waiver wire real quick, guys, because this is where a lot of our questions will probably get drafted from. So instead of answering a bunch of specific questions, we'll kind of let you know what is available in our waiver wire. Tough league in a 14-man league. So there's not going to be much left. And so I just kind of go through it and you'll know what's going on. We got a question about the first guy up here on the list. Is Josh McCown's up there. God, Eli Manning is available in our league. What you think about that, Dan? Whoa, from superstar to gutter right there. Dan had him as the best fantasy quarterback ever of all time last year. Now he ain't even on a roster in week 8.
What?
Yeah. Why is he not on a roster?
No, why you had did I hear that right? He said that you said he was the best fantasy quarterback ever?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a hyperbole by our own Brandon Reed there.
I was gonna say I almost just had a heart attack.
Slight.
So basically, so for the listeners that don't know, and Ryan obviously doesn't know, I coerced Brandon into drafting Eli Manning very early last year by saying he will be the number 1 fantasy quarterback of 2016. So Brandon bit the bait, and he dealt with it last year. But anyways,
I had ODB.
Hey, if he wasn't on bye this week, I'd probably pick him up. So
a lot of that I had to do with because I picked ODB number 1. So I'm thinking, bam, big combo. Eli didn't fulfill. ODB really didn't until the very end, and then helped me win the championship.
I just realized I don't even have a backup for Tom Brady. That might have to happen.
Hey, I got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is going to turn it up here. You just don't even know. You just don't
comparing
even know.
Mike Evans with any.
What was that?
There we go.
I'll all packaged together for you, and you know ahead of time. You're welcome. I will package together for you Matt Ryan, Greg Olsen, and Mike Evans.
For what?
It's gonna be big. It's gonna be big.
All right.
Talking about a Fournette or it ain't AP. It definitely ain't AP.
Matt Ryan. The beauty of Matt Ryan is when I was reading about him one day, I'm like. He's got my first name is his last name, my middle name is his first name, and his middle name is my last name.
That's
How about that?
Freaking crazy, man. That should be your most favorite player of all time.
He's one of my favorite quarterbacks. I like him. I like Matty Ice, but he's had a down year, no doubt about that.
Also, the Falcons blowing leads,
yeah.
and just it ain't looking good. And that really cost me my matchup last week. I lost by 4, and I'm probably pretty much dead. But I lost by 4 because Matt Ryan didn't do nothing against the worst defense up until the Fog Bowl, that is. In New England, come on now. Seriously? I mean, New England was the first team ever to give up over 300 yards a game passing for the first 6 games of the season. And Matt Ryan couldn't gash them up, so it's just the way it's gone. It's just the way it's gone. That was a nutty game. Did y'all see that, the Fog Bowl?
Yeah, how about the way it wasn't really working, but the Patriots just would not stop using Rex Burkhead on one of the drives. It was like they wouldn't take him off the field. They just kept handing him the ball, handing him the ball,
Throwing
handing
it
him
to
the
him
ball.
too. Throwing it to him.
Yeah. It was very, very interesting. I thought the way they kind of tried to grind out Atlanta, and for a while it wasn't working, but then as the game went on, it definitely worked.
All right. So, Dan, have you looked at the waiver wire? Which you said you refused to do. Why should a 6-1 team even look at the waiver wire? But if you do me such a great favor and just thinking outside of your great shoes, step outside your great shoes for just a second and think about us lowly guys that are 2-5 in the league, maybe 3-4. Help us out and look at our waiver wire and tell me where the gems is.
No, it's ugly. That's for sure. I have like 6 or 7 guys on bye this week, so I actually did look just to see what was out there.
Your bye weeks are stacked on you this week.
Yeah. So Prestige Worldwide. I mean, he is the worst 5-2 team or whatever.
Hey, lost 2 in a row. Started out 5-0.
Oh, thanks, Dan. That means a lot. I'm 5-2 as well.
Yeah, well, your team can't be as bad as his team. So.
Lost 2 in a row.
Congratulations.
I'll take the compliment. Even if it's not one.
Yeah, but anyways, back to the waiver wire. It's terrible. I mean, when a Buffalo Bill is projected the most out of any of the skill positions, that's Jordan Matthews. You're in some trouble. So I didn't even make any moves despite the need for me to do so. I mean, I'm just going to stick with Jacoby Brissett against Cincinnati as my quarterback this week with Mariota.
And we got an acquisition limit as well.
Yeah, well, I'm nowhere near coming to that.
No, you're not. I'm just saying in general. So you got to be careful. You can't just salvage the waiver wire every single week in our league.
Yeah, so it's definitely thin on that waiver wire, and I don't even see any hidden gems. And in another deep league that I'm in, I picked up AJ Derby because I needed a tight end with Evan Ingram on bye and Delaney Walker on bye in the same week. That's in a different league. So he's getting some targets for the Broncos. But other than that, there's really not a sleeper that I would say is available for you to really stick your teeth into.
Orlando, you looked at the waiver wire. What about this one, man? Travis Benjamin, Los Angeles Chargers.
I don't know about a hidden gem. If you got to use him, if you feel pretty good about him or his matchup, I mean, you can use him. But as far as a hidden gem, I don't think so. I've been looking at the waiver wire too. Every time I look at this waiver wire, I'm like, I just tell myself, why do I keep coming to this waiver wire? Because it is so dry. There's just nothing there, nothing you feel good about dropping someone about. I mean, unless you need to drop someone or picking someone up that's really going to help you. So as far as I see as a hidden gem or someone that could possibly explode, not too sure. I do like Matt Collins who's available, but I don't know. This is the year he explodes.
I see you dropped it. You dropped Elijah McGuire, I see.
Oh, well, Matt Forte coming back. I forgot who I picked up for Elijah McGuire. I just needed a running back. And with Forte and Bilal Powell there, he's just not going to get a lot of work, even in his deep league. That unless both of those guys are injured, there's a chance he gets a heavy workload again. But it's going to be tough to predict when those games are.
So check this out, Ryan. The aforementioned Rex Burkhead is available in our league, and then so is your man, Mike Tolbert.
Mike Tolbert, the guy that I think, in terms of the Buffalo Bills, has done much better than than what I thought he would. He's been used a hell of a lot more than what I thought he would. I thought he was just a short yardage back, but Buffalo is strictly using him as a running back too, which it's gone okay so far, but I don't like the idea of giving him the starting role in the event that LaShawn McCoy gets hurt. I like Tywan Jones on the Bills a lot better than Mike Tolbert in terms of being a running back.
Mike Tolbert is touchdown dependent. He was in Carolina.
Yeah, it's exactly. And one guy that just got picked up off the waiver wire by yours truly is Kenny Galladay. I did not want to leave him out there. There was somebody that I knew Golden Tate might not play this week. So I thought, well, we'll see what he can do this week. I think I currently have him in my flex slot, but if Kenny Galladay is available in your league, I would suggest it just in the event that Tate probably won't play this week.
Okay, guys. Yeah, it's thin pickings for sure. I dropped Terrence West some time ago. He's hurt. He's not. He's on the waiver wire. Jaquiz Rogers is on the waiver wire. I mentioned Elijah McGuire is out there. So looking at running backs there. So again, 14-team league, myfantasysportstalk.com league, and it is definitely thin pickings. We'll take a little trip through the wide receiver waiver wire real quick. Yeah, J.J. Nelson. I mentioned Travis Benjamin. He's out there. I don't know. That's thin pickings too. Tyler Lockett is out there. Kendall Wright, Chicago, is out there. Your man Cole Beasley. Beasley's just not providing the PPR points this year to be on a squad. Yeah. Damn.
He's had one good game, a 2-touchdown game, and in the week I think actually I dropped him. He went off and he scored 2 touchdowns. But other than that, yeah, he's just not targeted that much. I don't know. Dak is becoming a little bit more confident in throwing to Dez, although it doesn't always work out very well. And then you have Jay Witt there to steal those targets too. And for some reason, Terrence, I like to catch the ball only with my body, Williams. For some reason, he's still on the field, which is mind-boggling at times. And then you have Bryce Butler as well, who just shows up on the field randomly. He'll catch a 50-yard pass. So the Dallas offense, in terms of receivers, is all hit or miss, and you're praying that Dak will look his way that one week because the next week he can be completely different.
Yeah, that's how Bryce Butler, he's on the waiver wire as well. And you mentioned week 3, 16 points, and next week dropped in half to 8 points, and next week he had 6 points, and then bye week, and then nothing last week. So, yep. I don't see a whole lot, man. It's thin picking. So a lot. If you're looking to make desperate moves, your Terrence Williams is down there too. Is Jay Witt and Dez the only Cowboys receivers that even rosterable?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you answered that then. That was real easy. So if you are looking to make a move or need to get better real quickly, then you're probably going to have to do it via trade, which is what I'm trying to do. I guess I'm going to have to go to Ryan next. Dan, before the podcast, we were talking about our trade scenario. He just flat out declined it. He just told me to my face, no, man, that ain't happening. So
you don't mess with greatness. That's the thing. And why mess with the greatness of my team if I don't have to?
You need a quarterback.
Jacoby, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my motto.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just trying to take advantage for 1 week. Matt Ryan, Mike Evans, though. Hey, and I was even throwing in Greg Olsen, guys, and all I was asking in return, I was giving up all that, and all I was asking in return was Todd Gurley and Evan Ingram. Yeah. Come on now. A rookie and a guy who's probably going to fall off. You need to think about it, Dan. You need to think about it. Don't let this opportunity pass.
I'm tempted, Brandon. I'm tempted. I am tempted.
You're tempted?
So if Ryan owned Gurley, then yes, he would be tempted.
Exactly. Yep.
He's got Fournette. Fournette will come back soon.
I got Zeke too, but I need some clarity on the Zeke situation, and I need it now. That's. I'm about to punch my table. The next time I hear something change,
clear it up for him, Dan.
He's playing.
All right.
I mean, we're getting too late in the season.
It is dragged out so long. It won't go away. It's like anytime you think it's gone, it's like a cat with 9 lives.
So you got Leonard Fournette. You had Adrian Peterson, who had a big game the week before, and then Zeke. You're one of your big top dogs. So do you think that's a difference in a championship or not?
I think it's the difference in a championship appearance. I'm always somebody that I've said this a bunch of times. I take things week to week. I don't foresee like, my league I won last year and I'm 6-1. I'm not saying the R word yet, the repeat word yet, but I think that's a huge difference in making the finals or not, for sure.
Are you talking repeat getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs?
Oh,
what's that?
Ooh.
Were you talking repeat as in getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs?
In this league last year, I did, but I won't suffer the same fate again. You can mark that down. Right, the date. What's today's date? October. What is it?
25th. It's 25th? Already written.
10/25. T-Take says He will not lose in the first round of the playoffs. It's a new season. It's a different year.
So much for that week by week.
Exactly.
Oh man, don't let me start my winning streak. If I get my winning streak, you know what can happen.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
60 points.
Yeah, my running backs
Oh.
are horrible, guys. My running backs got me 4 points last week, and I still scored over 100. My running backs are deplorable, guys. They're absolutely sickening. But I'm going to be the champ in basketball. Speaking of basketball, we're going to talk about basketball coming up next. We got more mailbag questions from you. We're basically going to do the same thing we just did for football, look over the waiver wire, except in basketball where there's a lot more opportunity just a week into the season. So let's do that next. You're listening to and watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. Give us a hand. Brandon Reed, Dan Sharp, Orlando Torres, and Ryan Thomas. Hiya.
So,
I'm from Buffalo, live from Buffalo.
from one Buffalo. Hey, I wanna actually say something on the show on a somber note. In the city of Buffalo, in case you haven't seen, there's actually been a lot of nationwide coverage of it. He's a canine officer, Craig Lehner, passed away this past weekend. He was found. There was a huge search for him, and he was found. And there was a huge funeral service at Key Bank Center where thousands and thousands of people showed up for his public. It was like a public funeral for him. That showed me that despite the fact that the Bills haven't made the playoffs in 17 years, despite the fact that the Sabres had the no goal and all that stuff, sports-wise, you take your mind off sports for a second. Buffalo is a really unique city that I am very happy to be happy to reside in, happy to be from Buffalo after today.
Well, that's a good story. That's great insight that you're only getting here on MyFantasySportsTalk.com and My Fantasy Podcast. I do have a question about that. So you're saying he was a police canine dog?
He was a police canine officer.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I thought you were talking about the actual dog, and you said he was missing.
The police.
So I guess
canine
that my
officer-
question remains the same, because I was going to ask you how the police dog came up missing. Who let him go? But I
Well-
guess the officer is a human being.
The officer Craig Lehner was his name, and he was actually somebody my uncle and my grandpa were canine officers in Lockport. But they know a lot of the community as far as like police officers, firemen, canine officers, corrections officers. They're there's a big community in this area where they all kind of know each other. And not only was he a canine officer, but he was a Iraq war veteran. So
What exactly happened? I guess what
he was
why was
going
he
through
missing?
he was going through a training run. He was a diver. And something must have had, the details are kind of fuzzy, but I'm assuming that, he drowned. And I believe it was, I'm not really sure where it was, to be honest. I don't want to speculate, but I'm pretty sure that was the situation. He was going through a training run and he went missing, and they couldn't find him for, 2-3 weeks. They found him, and, the way this community, I mean, a man that I've never met, a man that most people have never met in this city, they went to his funeral, and the Pagulas paid, Terry and Kim Pagula paid for his funeral. I get choked up just talking about it because there's a lot of people that don't really know Buffalo in that way. They see it as, it's a dead-end sports town. It's a pretty special place. It really is.
What's the population of Buffalo?
I believe it's around 200,000. I'm pretty sure 250,000 maybe. Dan might know a little bit better than me, but I'm pretty sure it's around there.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the last census, so I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, last I checked, it was around 230,000. But I mean, this is a city that Dan has lived, in Western New York his entire life. I'm pretty sure. I know I have, and there's been a lot of times where it's like, man, this city has nothing to offer. But then there's moments like this where it's like, wow, there's actually some unique people that live in this city, and I'm pretty fortunate to be from here.
There you go. Live from Buffalo, Ryan Thomas Tate. Good story, man. All right, so let's flip the script from the NFL waiver wire and talk about the NBA waiver wire. Right now, currently in our league, got it pulled up. Just kind of go through it a little bit. Let me ask you, Dan, have you even made any NBA moves in our league yet?
Oh, yeah, no, I did. I went hard towards the end of last week because I was losing, and I tried to make some magic happen that just I'm not a magician, so it couldn't happen. But yeah, I've made some moves. I actually see a couple guys I'm playing in daily fantasy. I don't know about you or Orlando, but I've been doing NBA daily fantasy pretty hard the last few days. I think I entered the same line, and I never do this. I entered the same lineup in 7 different contests tonight, which I usually don't do. I like to vary it up, but I'm pretty confident in this one. Got a couple sleepers going tonight, and one of them is on the waiver wire. Jared Bayless for the 76ers with Markelle Fultz out. Bayless is gonna jump into that starting lineup, get some serious run for these next few games. And if you're gonna play him in daily fantasies, around $4,000 on FanDuel, which is fantastic value for a point guard. So he's a guy that I'm looking at to definitely pick it up and play well tonight and moving forward.
Well, there you go. I like it. Since you mentioned that, I got one for you too, who's kind of stepping up. Is a center for Toronto, Jakob Poeltl, if that's how you pronounce his name. But with Valanciunas down, he's going to be playing big minutes. Had a good game last game. Could put up pretty decent numbers and very low value around. I think hovering around that 4,000 too. So. Kind of a value play for me right now tonight as well. And one of Orlando's guys too, Dejounte Murray. He is playing on my team tonight. Good value there. Orlando, how many minutes is he going to get? Tell me it's going to be a lot, though, right?
No, he's averaging around like 25 minutes a game. So he's getting a hefty amount of work. And you stole, man, I went straight to look for Murray because I picked him up in another league because I had Hayward, so I needed a replacement. So I picked up Murray. So I went to go look for him in our league, of course, and he was gone. I saw he had him. I was like, wow. Oh. But I think one of the sleepers that I like, he's not available in our league, unfortunately, because I went to go look for him as well. We have a lot of smart guys in our league, but I picked him up in another league. Lauri Markkanen of Chicago Bulls. He's lining it up. Chances are he's available.
Mirotic out too, or however you pronounce his name, the guy that Bobby Portis knocked out.
Yeah, that he knocked out. But it's the way Markkanen is playing and the way Chicago is rebuilding a team, it's hard to see him just go back to the less work that he was getting. I think he's earning his role, he's earning his more minutes, and Markkanen is a solid pickup. I think he could be one of those hidden gems for you, with the Bills rebuilding and with the Bulls rebuilding and everything, and knocking out 10 3-pointers in his first 3 games is still early on. But I really do like the Markkanen pick, and if he's available in your league, you should definitely pick him up along with Murray.
Dan, we got one of our rookies that we talked a lot about, Donovan Mitchell. He's available out there. He's played 4 games and played very decent 4 games. Had one down game of 10 points. That was his down game. His high game was 26. That was the last game. So Donovan Mitchell going to start turning it on.
I mean, he's definitely been getting some run in Utah, so it's nice. I mean, he was known more on the defensive end of the floor when he came out of Louisville this past year, so it's good to see him do well offensively. I think he still has to grow into his game. So I wouldn't rely on him week or day in, day out. But if you're looking for a pickup towards the end of a week to try and get some solid points, which I'm figuring out you kind of have to do. If you don't have to bust them all, but there's a couple guys on the end of my bench in my league that are replaceable every week. So if you keep a rotating door of 2 to 3 guys or 1 to 2 guys, he's definitely a guy that you would pick up and kind of spot start.
Yeah, I don't know what that's like. I'm so deep that I'm not getting rid of any of my studs. So.
That's how I was last year.
All right, so another guy I got pulled up here, E'Twaun Moore from New Orleans. Guys, 4 games, 24, then a down game of 6, and 24 and 21. He's getting a lot of minutes, getting over 30 minutes a game. So able to look at him. There's still a lot of good guys out here on the waiver wire this year because we're only a week into the season, so we just don't know a whole lot right now. So you still got opportunity out there.
Definitely.
James Ennis from Memphis.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about the basketball season. I'm looking at our wave. Mario Chalmers for your Grizzlies. He's still out there. His lowest point total is 17 points. So
look at James Ennis. He started out slow with 11 points. That's because Dylan Brooks stole them all in the first game against New Orleans. But in the last 2 games, James Ennis has 29 and 31. So there's some meat out there, guys. You just got to look for it.
Yes, Dylan Brooks available in our league? He probably isn't, but that'll be a great.
Nope, he's not. I got him.
I don't know if they'll be hitting jam.
No. He's going to be hit and miss a little bit. I mean, he's definitely got scoring potential, but he's going to be within the flow of a game. Something's going to have to happen. Someone's going to have to get foul trouble and sit out where he has a whole lot of minutes and gets a whole lot of shots up. But with Mark and Mike healthy, Tyreek healthy out there on the floor, then I don't necessarily think, especially JaMychal Green, when he comes back, I don't necessarily think that Dylan's going to get a whole lot of touches every single week enough to be really productive. But he's shown he can score with the quickness and has a hot shooting touch, and he was a steal for us, man. Going into the draft with no draft picks, and we wound up with Dylan Brooks along with Ivan Rabb, but Dylan Brooks especially. I like it. So anybody else out there, guys? You're looking at Jeff Green is out there. Manu Ginobili, guys.
I like Bogdan Bogdanovic from the Pacers. He was hurt the first game, but he came back. He's shooting lights out from the floor. So he's a name to keep an eye on. He's kind of a streaky shooter, but the Pacers like him, and they're going to consistently give him some minutes.
Kenneth Farid's out there. He's got 1 39-point game, and then not a whole lot around it. But
yeah, that's a frustrating scenario. He was my favorite player back when I was a Nuggets fan. No longer am, obviously, but he's going to be moved sooner rather than later, maybe in a package for Eric Bledsoe with the Suns. But if he can get consistent minutes, he's a solid fantasy player, especially with his rebounds, blocks, and he always gets points because he's getting those putbacks consistently. He just doesn't get any time in Denver.
Yep, and he's aging, getting older as well. Paul Zipser. He's out there, guys, not doing too bad as a shooting guard for the Bulls, 19, 11, and 29. And now with Bobby Portis missing time, he may get a little bit more time. And Miric as well, the guy who Bobby Portis' jaw broke. So
let's give Orlando some props. It looks like he's going to move to 2-0 in our league, coming off 1-0, and now he's dominating our boy DDT. He's absolutely dominating him this week. It's still early, but props to Orlando there.
Yeah, no, he talked a lot of smack on the other side for the football, so I got to return the favor basketball-wise and just put him into the dirt, if you know what I mean. So I'm not going to stop putting those points onto DDT, and I'm going to rub it in whenever I can.
DDT's team is not very good, and he even admitted so. I think he put up one of the worst point totals last week.
No. Don't give him that excuse. He was trying to admit
that it was worried, Orlando.
Good. So then when he
ain't got
sucks,
nothing to worry about.
At the end, he could say, well, I admitted it. That wasn't that good. No. Stick it to him. He's trying just to, just let us off the hook a little bit. It's not going to happen.
And one point of the podcast last week that I did listen to is when you guys tried to get his take on why the Thunder were going to make the NBA Finals. And the only thing I remember about that is him getting a phone call in the middle of it and getting cut off. So you think that phone call was an accident? No way.
No, we still don't have an answer.
No reasoning for the Thunder making the NBA Finals. DDT, come at me.
I meant to mention that too. Great point. So perceptive, Dan, because you were exactly right. I thought about that after I was going through and editing the podcast, and I'm like, you know what? We never really got a real answer, just like Dan said from last week. So in the mysterious phone call, the podcast cut off. So we had to move on. But yeah, some answering to do right there. Good call, Dan. Hey, Caleb Swanigan is out there, Dan. 2 good games sandwiched in by 2 not so good games.
Minutes, all about minutes. You got to get that consistent playing time, which
not bad numbers. He's doing okay because, like you said, under 15 minutes a game, so he's not getting a whole lot of opportunity. Yeah. All right, that's our waiver wire, guys. In the NBA, still a whole lot out there. If you're looking for to deepen your team or to play the strategy Dan is and just sub guys in and out. Gary Henderson, that question was for you, man. Appreciate it. Sleeper. It's hard to say right now. There's a lot out there. You just don't know which one's going to turn into a hidden gem. But good luck to you. So let's flip it back around, guys. This mailbag, like Dan said, it was a plethora. I'm going to use the word plethora, Dan. Would you say that we had a plethora of mailbag questions this week?
Yeah, plethora. I used cornucopia more for the fall season. I don't know if you caught that, but we got a whole mix of questions this week. Some were very entertaining.
And you got your fall purses lined up in the rack behind you there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they go with every single outfit I have.
Okay. Cornucopia, you're correct. So, but anyway, we're going to flip it back to the NFL with this question. So this one comes from, and I feel sorry for this guy, Dan, Orlando. You guys saw the question. Mike Mentencio. I don't even like asking the question, but I had to. I had Aaron Rodgers, Carson Palmer, and Andrew Luck. My options are now McCown, Hundley, or Matt Moore. Who would you choose? Ooh. Again, my condolences, Mike. Ryan, we haven't heard from you in a minute. What up with this? What bad luck, though, right? Rodgers, Palmer, and Luck was his quarterback. Starting out the season, not too bad, okay?
What was this gentleman's name?
Mike Mentencio.
Mike Mentencio. Mike, you are not the only one that lost out on Rodgers and Carson Palmer. My buddy Tom, shout out to Tom. He's watching the show, big fan. He had Rodgers and Carson Palmer. Rodgers gets hurt. He puts in Carson Palmer last week, and Carson Palmer gets hurt too. If I am choosing between McCown, Hundley, and Matt Moore, I would honestly take Josh McCown, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but he has actually impressed me. He's done a lot better than what I thought he would, and I actually like some of the receiving weapons that he has. I like Jermaine Kearse. I like Robbie Anderson, and Safarian Jenkins has done all right as well. Obviously, he's got Matt Forte to throw to as well. I would go with Josh McCown if I was Mike. Sorry for your pain, Mike.
And I'm sorry to say it too, because Orlando and Dan probably remember, I think we had a question very similar where Josh McCown was an option of the other question. And I think we all kind of dismissed it. Like, no, Josh McCown is not an answer. He's completely not an answer, not even rosterable, not an option. And now breaking down this scenario, I'm going to have to say McCown, because I don't know if you saw Hundley's first game, but he threw one touchdown, but also accompanied it by 4 picks. And then Matt Moore's just holding down the job temporarily. He's just a temporary game manager. His numbers aren't great. He's just managing the offense behind a pretty good defense. So I think it's going to have to be Josh McCown. I agree with Ryan. Orlando?
Yeah, and I'm going to have to go McCown as well. Hundley's on a bye week, so I don't know if he's talking about long-term or just streaming. But if he's okay, we'll go with Matt Moore in a short week. That wouldn't be bad. I know the Ravens defense has been pretty good, but those guys can't really. They're struggling just to put up points, and he's been, he seems to lock in on Kenny Stills and Jarvis Landry. I caught a bit of the game last week when he went in for Cutler. So Matt Moore wouldn't be a bad pickup, but if he's not okay with a short week, then you got to go with McCown.
Dan, you going to disagree or agree?
Yeah, no, I mean, Orlando alluded to it a little bit with Hundley on bye this week. I think you probably need a guy this week, and that would be McCown. But I like Hundley long term. I just think in that Packers offense, he's going to get it right. McCown, I mean, as soon as the Jets start losing, which is going to happen, he's going to lose that starting job. So I would hate to rely on a quarterback, and then come week 13, he's going to lose the starting job. If you're playoff bound, that's going to hurt you. So I like Hundley. He has the ability to scramble, get you yards with his feet. Another guy that I'm pretty high on as well that might be available, you didn't list here, is C.J. Beathard of the 49ers. He's a guy that I've drafted actually in one of my dynasty leagues that I'm in. With that Kyle Shanahan system, they're going to be down a lot. The 49ers are not a good team, so they're going to constantly be throwing the ball. So I like Beathard to be able to put up some fantasy points in his rookie season, which is more of a learning experience than anything else. But he's pretty solid if you have to rely on somebody who's going to have a high volume of pass attempts.
So if we are talking long term here, and I think we asked the question last week. We've been asking it every single week, and here we are in week 8. What's up with Andrew Luck? When's it going to happen? What's Greg Doyle say, Dan?
Well, you got to tell me. You're the one that goes out for drinks with Greg Doyle of the Indianapolis Star, Brandon Reed's best friend. So you will really need you to answer that. But it looks like he might not even play. I mean, they keep shutting down his throwing program after he throws one day of limited throws. So I don't expect him to see him back, which is a shock. I mean, I wasn't expecting this. I drafted him in one of my leagues. I still have him on my bench in that league, still holding out hope, although I have Deshaun Watson, so it's okay if he doesn't come back. I think the Colts losses, just like the Jets, are going to start adding up, and you're going to see a kind of a waste of a season then where they're going to be playing more for a draft pick than anything else.
And any chance Aaron Rodgers does come back and play again this year?
No.
You don't think so? That's not what I'm hearing. I mean, I kind of agree with you. I mean, we're just about halfway through the season. That's going to be tough to come back from your throwing arm, but it's not what I'm hearing.
I don't think it would be a smart move on their part. It really depends on where they are wins, losses wise with Hundley. I know most teams don't think that way. Either they are coming back or they're not, but I would say the Packers would be more inclined to bring him back if they have a 500 or winning record to bring him back. But talking about Jacoby Brissett, I'm wondering if Indianapolis will shut down Luck just so they can kind of get a value or a trade maybe with Brissett. That's something that I mentioned on my podcast, and then 2 days later, Colin Cowherd's talking about it on The Herd, and I'm like, what the hell? He stole my idea.
Yeah, the Patriots have done that a few times. A few guys have made paychecks like that. Matt Castle, for one. You never know. You never know. Could be true. So I guess the long way around that question is I think we all agreed that McCown is the answer right now. Depending on your scenario, if you're playing daily, then maybe watch out for Hundley, I think, as Orlando said, depending on the matchup, of course. So see what happens. I think they're playing Baltimore, as Orlando said this week. So feel sorry for you, man. That's just bad luck. I think it happens to just about everybody. If you escape major injuries throughout your season and you had a pretty good team, then you're doing pretty good. But to lose, your 3 quarterbacks like that, and Andrew Luck never really even played, that's tough. Tough luck, Mike Mentencio. So appreciate the question. All right. I guess we saved the best for last. We're going to kind of do 2 things at once here. We're going to address some hate mail to Ryan, which I told you was coming. You're going to get your fair share, so we're going to bounce that off you. And we're going to talk about your Buffalo Bills and talk about them for a little bit. So that's going to be a great happening on the podcast next. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. You're also watching My Fantasy Podcast from MyFantasySportsTalk.com. If you just go on our website, MyFantasySportsTalk.com, and click the article and then watch right there on the page, it's a beautiful thing, technology. Brandon Reed, Dan Shaw, Orlando Torres, and now the infamous Ryan Thomas to the podcast.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Sorry, I will say my sorry. I was a little bit late tonight. I was having I was charging my phone. Was upstairs, didn't hear the text, but yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, way to go. You almost ruined the whole thing, so I don't even feel sorry for you right now. So we got a question for you, or a statement / question, which happens a lot. From a Smart Pats fan, Bruce Serbic.
Bruce. My boy Bruce. What's up, Bruce?
You ready?
I'm ready. You can bring it.
There are always coworkers you can't stand, and I'm assuming Brandon feels that way about your guest Ryan last week. He definitely has a voice for radio, but damn, it's annoying as hell. The Bills will not make the playoffs, anyone agree? He's kind of slid that in there. That statement was mostly about bashing you, and then, okay, well, we want to talk about sports, I guess. What's the Bills going to do? It's mostly about you.
Yeah. The weirdest thing about the statement, I don't know if Bruce is trying to figure out whether he likes me or not. He says I got a voice for radio. He listened to the entire show, I'm assuming, and then says that, my voice is annoying. So it's kind of a backhanded compliment, but a kind of a backhanded swipe at me too. But in honor of might be suspended, maybe not suspended, much like my haters on the Thomas Take, I eat them like cereal.
Was that Cocoa Puffs? Yeah,
Honey
Cocoa
bunches
Puffs,
of oats.
Fruity Pebbles.
And they're pretty soggy, to be honest. They've been sitting here a little while.
That was interesting. We've got one guy in a Robin costume with a cape on today's podcast, and another guy eating cereal. I've lost it again, Dan. I've just lost complete control of this podcast. We started out so formal, so nice, and so neat with great debate, and now I don't know what's happened.
I'll be wearing this again next week.
I'll bring
regular.
the cereal too. I'll change it up. Maybe next week I will bring the Fruity Pebbles.
Wow.
No, Bruce, I never said. I don't know what this guy's talking about. I never said in my life, in the past 17 years that I've watched the Buffalo Bills every Sunday, I've never said once, and Dan can attest to this, I never said that the Buffalo Bills would make the playoffs. Ever. I won't say it at 4-2. I won't say it if they're 6-0. I will not say it until I see it with my own 4 eyes, because I do wear glasses on occasion.
So you can see your cereal.
Exactly.
Snap, crackle, popping.
So we got a guy taking phone calls on a podcast, and the other one having cereal. Sounds great.
I just had one bite. I said, like my cereal, I eat my haters for breakfast. That's all. It was a
Yeah,
metaphor.
but it's 8 o'clock at night. What are you doing?
The cereal's 24 hours. There's no limit to the amount of or time. The amount
That's
of cereal.
that's kind of a fluffy dinner, if you ask me. I don't know if that's hardcore. That's
It's
not
because breakfast is the most important meal of the day, bro.
Exactly. Orlando
not
knows.
at 8
He gets it.
o'clock.
Orlando
8 o'clock.
understands me.
Just doesn't sound like a training regiment that Floyd Mayweather would follow. I'm just saying.
No, it's definitely not. All credit to Floyd. I think he's going to fight again. I don't think he's done.
Why? I'd end it 50-0, just like that.
He loves the money. He's hitting a heavy bag. He's working out. It's like, what reason does
Dude,
he
go
have to
spend the
work out?
money then. Forget that training and hours spent in the gym and all
He
that crap.
probably already has spent the money. That's the problem. He goes through money like water.
Yeah, that is an issue. So, but you handled the hate well, I guess. You rebutted.
You just gotta. Dude, I get so between the Bills fans, between the Red Sox fans, between MMA fans. I did an hour-long show yesterday. It's got each subject bullet pointed, and a guy comments on it and says, "You barely talked about MMA." I re-listened to it. I talked about MMA for half of the show. First half, you got to spread it out. You can't talk about one topic all the time. It is what it is. At least they're tuning in, though.
So let's go back to Buffalo Bills and talk to Dan about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody would know I don't even pick them when they are favorites in our pick'em column. I don't think the Bills are a very good team. I think they've gotten extremely lucky in a lot of their matchups. Tyrod Taylor is the worst starting quarterback in the league. I would take DeShone Kizer over Tyrod Taylor as quarterback, and I wrote a piece this week saying that the Browns should bench Kizer for the rest of the year.
Oh, you wrote that piece. I wasn't paying attention. You actually wrote that. Okay.
That was very good too, Dan, by the way. I saw that, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to read this. I read it. It was very good. I give you props on that one.
Well, I'm glad I have the Thomas Take seal of approval. So
You got the Thomas Take stamp.
It's a stamp.
yeah, I see a slide coming for the Bills. They got some tough games coming up, and I just don't see them maintaining this type of pace, especially in what seems to be a difficult AFC East. We know it's the Patriots to lose, and I expect the Patriots to be on top. So that means the Bills are going to be fighting for a wild card, and with some other teams out there, I just don't see it happening this year.
So Orlando, the Bills are up there at the top. They're 4-2, right? Currently 4-2.
Yeah, 4-2. Probably one of the worst 4-2 teams behind the Dolphins. No, offensively, I just don't know how they're going to get it done. They've been getting it done, but defensively, they've been doing pretty good. It was good to see Shady McCoy finally get the workload that we've all been expecting since the beginning. I think that's something that's been lacking, him getting 2 touchdowns and just going off. I don't. It would be nice to see if hopefully Nick O'Leary could step up and kind of make up for the production that Clay was providing before he went down with the knee injury. But looking at some of the receiving options like Zay Jones, he's just not getting it done at the moment. So it's gonna Tyrod Taylor. I know he's been decently okay, better fantasy quarterback than a real life football player. I guess for that system. So
real life football player, that doesn't bode well.
yeah. So yeah, I'm not gonna say the Bills make the playoffs. I mean, but 4-2, surprisingly, hey, I think they'll take that. That's a good sign for them. I don't think no one saw that coming.
Yeah, odds slight chance to make the playoffs as far as I'm concerned, Bruce. Because here's the thing: I looked ahead at the schedule. They got to play the Dolphins and the Patriots twice the last 5 games of the year. That is brutal, and that's when the division is going to be decided right there. So I just believe one of those other teams like the Ravens, Bengals, Titans, or Texans are going to sneak up and take that spot from them if they're in contention, if they can maintain and handle Miami when they need to. But that's a tough way to end the season in your schedule when you got to play 2 teams the last 4 games of the year, and you're probably not the better team out of all of them. So a tough way to end the season. So I don't know. I'm not giving it much of a chance, but I know you just wanted to take that shot at Ryan. So much props to you. Great question, Bruce.
I'm bulletproof. Bulletproof. Those bullets just bounce off like Superman.
Yep. That was a great way to end the mailbag segment. Kind of baptizing the new guy, I guess. And you don't know that that's the worst you got. I'll tell you that.
No, I expect worse. It really doesn't bother me. I look at it. I find it kind of humbling if they're willing to listen to the show, take in my take, and even react to it positively or negatively. There's a saying that goes, any publicity is good publicity, and I believe in that.
You know what I believe in? MyFantasySportsTalk.com, and just the great quality of articles and content provided on that website, like this podcast right here, My Fantasy Podcast. Just one piece of that large, delicious pie. Dan, what's going on our website right now? We talked about the Browns should bench Kaiser rest of the season, and that was just one thing. Right around the time you put up one that I was really interested in is that the betting odds in Vegas over this World Series.
Yeah, big money going to the Dodgers, and rightfully so. I mean, especially the first 2 games in LA, I think they received multiple 6-figure bets. Vegas Sportsbook did on the Dodgers, which shows money is definitely leaning towards LA. And we're about to get first pitch off here right now, but it's probably going to continue that way. The Dodgers are heavy favorites. The line for the series now is, I think the odds are plus 300 if you think the Astros are going to win the series after losing Game 1. So it's not very good odds. If I were betting on this series, which I'm not because I would never bet against my Astros, but I would put all my money on the Dodgers. So I expect that to kind of continue the trends. And then entertainment section doing its stuff as usual, blowing up. We alluded to it earlier, but college basketball season is starting off. I will be covering Canisius basketball again for the site, and looking forward to that. Their season tips off in, I think, around 2 weeks. 2 weeks college basketball season starts. One thing that I am very bummed about is ESPN got rid of their midnight marathon tip-off madness.
What?
I was a huge fan of. They stopped doing it.
They don't have the crew anymore? Because since the last one, they've laid off about 150 people, I think.
Yeah, that could be part of it. Another thing that I read is the college basketball scandal with Adidas and Rick Pitino and all the assistant coaches. That affected a lot of it as well. So it was definitely disappointing, but there are still some tournaments that tip off at about 9 a.m. Eastern on November 16th and 17th. So I'll be off covering those for the site as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And obviously NBA season going on, all the fantasy, you know where to go, myfantasysportstalk.com. And we have some things in the works for the future. So make sure you stay tuned to the site, the podcast, and just find us on social media, Facebook and Twitter. And stay tuned for some big things that are in the works for the next few months.
All right. You heard it right there. I'm still disappointed that we can't watch like Wagner at Cal State Poly at 3:15 in the morning this year, Dan.
I'm pissed. I basically threw my phone when I read that article. It was disheartening, and I was very upset. I'm still not even fully over it.
Don't be no Joel Berry, guys. Don't be no Joel Berry, Dan. Maintain calm, serenity now. I don't know if y'all heard about that, but yeah, Joel Berry's going to miss the first month of the season for the Tar Heels because he lost to a teammate in a video game and punched his hand through a wall and broke it, I guess.
He was hitting bricks like Mello.
I wonder what video game it was.
I think it was 2K. That's what
was it?
Yeah.
Well, that sounds better than like Monopoly or something like that. Or Mario Kart. Wow, that's something. That is something. So that ties in well with our college basketball conversation. But yes, a whole lot going on the website right now, myfantasysportstalk.com. A lot of fantasy pieces. Orlando has his Man Up Step Aside, which will be coming out real soon this week. Check every single week for that. Check out our Pick'ems piece every single week. And can't miss it. We have a battle going on right now. I think you probably, I don't know if you've read the stats yet, Dan, but am I still a top dog?
For what? The fantasy basketball?
No, the Pick'em.
Oh, Pick'em. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You are. Yeah. The Thursday night pick piece will be published tomorrow morning. But yeah, Brandon is still top dog, and I think Orlando overtook me or tied me last week, so I haven't tallied the scores, but I think without a doubt it's going to stay pretty constant.
None of our records are really great, though. What a topsy-turvy, crazy NFL season it has been. So, but thanks for joining us on the podcast. Thanks to Ryan Thomas for joining us on the podcast, taking the heat and all that. Orlando Torres for joining the podcast as well, as he escapes the heat as well in San Antonio. Was a little bit cooler than normal. And thanks to Dan Schalk for returning from Florida, Del Boca Vista Phase 2, and rejoining us on the podcast and helping maintain control this week. Keep submitting the questions, fantasy mailbag questions. We're going to get to more next week and more fantasy talk and more whatever. Just follow us and check us out next week. I'm Brandon Reed. Till then, later. Peace.